Yes, so today's
Okay.
workshop is about Sustainable Development Goals 4.7, and we will be going over part one and part two. There'll be two parts to this workshop. The first one, we'll hear from our special guests that have really inspired us throughout this journey. We will also have my colleague Heinz, who will provide overview of the teaching resource that we have on education for sustainable development. Then we are here to get inspired from Bluebell schools, as I have been really inspired by their journey on education for sustainable development, as well as global citizenship education. We'll have our guest, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who will be, listening to all of our work, giving his vision, but will also be interacting with some students on this book that he's written on the age of sustainable development. So we look forward to hearing from his voice as well as the student interactions that we'll have with him. And part two is the nitty gritty of how we go forward, what do we do, how do we do this. So Tara, my colleague, will go over the framework and will help to co-create some of the materials. She'll go over the framework of how we will co-create this material. And then we'll hear from Amanda, who runs global schools and can provide international examples to see how we can take this forward and how we can learn from her experience through global schools. And finally, we have a very exciting summer project for our eco ambassadors, which again is you all take it to different countries, and so we will really get inspired by the eco ambassadors summer work, and let's see what we can all do together with the summer that's coming up. Great. So next slide, Tara. This is really a difficult time for all of us, especially I would say India, because right now there are a lot of surges, coronavirus surges in India. So I just want to reflect and be a part of this community, because I feel that without really connecting with the community in all sorts of social issues, as well as all sorts of environmental issues, it doesn't really come together, and we can't really ignore what is going on currently, with the pandemic. So I just wanted to read out two um inspirational quotes from two world leaders. One is Pope Francis, who says that rivers don't drink their own water, trees do not eat their own fruit, the sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other. No matter how difficult it is, life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you. And this is the time, I think, to reflect on this, which combines global citizenship education as well as education for sustainable development, to make our communities come together and to help each other. I think this is a really difficult time that we are going through, and I hope that we are taking this time out to be with each other. But I just want us to be also connected with people who are suffering because of COVID, or are alive or are dead, and maybe we can take a minute or two to just silently close our eyes and remember them and help them through our prayers and through our well wishes, so that we can all be, again, be a part of this community and help each other. So maybe let's just take a minute or two to reflect and go within ourselves to send this world or this universe all the positive energies we can.
Oh,
Great. Thank you for being with me and meditating for the people who are suffering. And just to go over this again, a poem or a recitation by Dalai Lama. No matter what is going on, never give up. Develop the heart. Too much energy in your country is spent developing the mind instead of the heart. Not just to your friends, but to everyone. Be compassionate. Work for peace in your heart and in the world. Work for peace. And I say again, never give up. No matter what is happening, not matter what is going on around you, never give up. So I think with this inspiration, let's go forward with building a community that we want to build for ourselves and for our kids, that can look after each other. And let's not be siloed, and let's not just keep things in pockets, because it really cannot work this way anymore. At least the COVID example has shown us that. Next slide, Tara. So with that note, we'll start with a very special guest we have, William Bertolotti. He's a science teacher in Plannage High School in New York, and we have been working together on a book chapter, and Will really has been an inspiration for many of us, especially also his students, and he's really an inspiration to see what power teachers have. They can really change lives, and I think Will changes lives. So let's hear from Will, and get inspired again to see how we can take this work forward. Will, over to you.
Good morning, everybody, and good evening, everybody. It's great to see you all again, and I'm honored to be able to share a few words. Um, Part of the, or most of those words, were inspired by my students, and my thought, just to start things off today, is maybe sharing some of the prepared words that I have for you guys. So at this point, my students, they're preparing for the advanced placement exams, and I approach them with the opportunity to read a book on sustainable development. APs, a pandemic year of disruption and uncertainty, and I'll honestly say, as an educator, I was surprised when my students said yes, absolutely. We'll read the book and we'll prepare questions. And what followed was nothing short of inspiring. Late afternoons jigsawing the different chapters, an omnibus Google slide presentation, and the some of the book review and author questions demonstrating their understanding. Afternoons spent learning about economics, history, social justice. All this into a presentation before the school principal and administration that summarized the key points of sustainable development while advocating their importance. I realized that this is what education could be. That this is what a summative assessment could entail. Not necessarily aptitude or academic accomplishment, but most importantly, student inspiration, ownership, and advocating for a sustainable future, their future. I was I was really inspired by these students. In these times and prospects where humanity faces an historic and existential turning point, and the enthusiasm with which my students showed toward learning, exploring, and applying, they were proof that although the prospects are challenging, no situation is without hope. And to the next generation of global citizens, now is our time to rise to the occasion. Students like you, during a year of illness, violence, and chaos, you endured. You showed resilience. You proved that you could succeed and accomplish learning even when the world told you you couldn't. And that's what we'd like you to walk away with, the spirit to endure, the spirit to fight. Put your all into your studies. Invest everything you've got into yourself. Every day, when you're in class, when you're learning, ask yourself, why do I need this? What skills can I gain from this experience? Who else can I learn from? Who can I partner with to strengthen my impact? And how can I use what I've learned to strengthen my ability to make the world just a little better? Grow into the best person you can be so that when the time comes, you can lead your community into a greener future. And I honestly, I picked all of this up from my students. And I guess that really is a fundamental, like a secret, with education, that it's not necessarily top down from teacher to student, that especially now during these times, that it really is, it's the students, taking leadership and showing the effort that are really the true inspiration here. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Will. That was such a great start to our program, and thank you for being, an inspiration to all of us throughout our journey. Thank you for being around and also, asking your students to help on all these assignments. We really appreciate your help. With that, we'll go over to our second guest, Mike Heinz. He is from the Department of Education, New Jersey State. And again, Mike has a really huge responsibility of integrating climate change education into the curriculum. And we wanted to know from him to get inspiration on how can we build student voices and community voices into this curriculum effort, and to bring the systemic change that we want to bring through schools and curriculums, but also give a space for student leadership and give a space for community-based activities. Mike, over to you.
Thank you. I can't express how honored I am to be speaking with so many students from all over the world. I want to take a map and start pinning out who I'm talking to today. But so climate change is clearly an issue. There's no vaccine for it. So it is up to us to find ways to mitigate it, adapt to it, become more resilient to it. So COVID has really disrupted education. And it's my hope that we do not rebuild what we had, but that we build something brand new, something like what William has just described, where students identify something that's important to them. Climate change impacts each of us differently. But find something that's important to you and your community, and find out who's working on it in your community. There may be a civic group, there may be some level of government agency, there may be one person, but connect and create partnerships, co-design solutions, work with the people who are being affected by climate change. And by working with them, you'll learn an amazing amount of stuff that was unintended. You may learn about a new culture. You may learn about an amazing history that a neighbor had that you had no idea about. So I really encourage educators and especially students to find something they're passionate about, find something that is important to you, and find partners in the community and find different ways that make sense to you to fight it. It may be civic action. It may be engaging in the political system. It may be going out and physically building something. We had students help to rebuild our shore after a superstorm, and literally went out and rebuilt sand dunes and replanted the plants to protect their community. So, we've really created a mess for your generation, and your generation is inspiring me every day with your passion and with your creativity and innovation. So thank you for having me this morning. I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to hear stories of your success as you move forward. So thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to hear from you and get all your support. Really lucky to have you in our team. Our next guest is Elisa. Elisa is the director of a non-profit organization called Research Foundation for Eco Education, which is launched in 2020. And after designing the school-wide curriculum for sustainability-oriented K-12 school in Guatemala. Originally a preschool and kindergarten teacher, she is taught in many countries in the world and has different kinds of education systems. So I think Elisa brings this international context and really has taken this idea of transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary work in her school and through her non-profit. Elisa, we are very happy that you can join us today. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Radhika. Good to see all of you. I want to pick up on something that William said, which is this existential turning point. And I want to think about together how we can design learning experiences in which we're changing the thinking from surviving to thriving. So in that, I want to think about how we conceive of sustainability. We're using, as Radhika was saying, the SDGs and sustainability as a vehicle for learning experiences and activities in which we can be understanding better how to be well in the world. So in what way can we go beyond sustainability, right? In what way can we be thinking about the well-being of our communities and even thriving? And what Mike said, the example Mike gave in terms of actually rebuilding. So I think that's really important. And I also want to talk. Thank you. I also want to touch on the topic of innovation. So when we're thinking about education for sustainability and for combating climate change and environmental degradation, we have to think about doing something new, right? So this is actually a conversation that came up with some friends of mine who are designers, and they were talking about how when you're designing, you have to be willing to go into new terrain and do something brand new that hasn't been done. And in that, we have to also be willing to fail or make mistakes at least, right? So the reason that the same thing keeps getting taught over and over is because it's easy to do that, right? It's easy to just reproduce the same. So let's design brand new things, but let's be willing to go into spaces that are maybe uncomfortable and maybe even where we may make some mistakes and learn from our mistakes, and then we can adapt from those mistakes to really get it right. And with that, I also want to add, when we're designing, we want to be thinking about who's the user, right? So if it's students, then which students are going to experience this learning experience? We want to be thinking about, and I think William, you touched on this as well, who's having this experience? What's relevant to you, or as Mike was saying, what's important to the students who will have this experience? And so I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for letting me share my few thoughts. And Radhika, I'll turn it back to you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Elisa. I think this is great. So we get to make mistakes, we get to learn, and that's how we grow. Thanks for the reminder again. It's always, I'm the person who wants to be safe all the time and I don't want to make mistakes. So it's a good reminder for me to be a little bit more experimental and be a little bit more bold. So thanks for those precious words. I think our next slide is on our Udemy course for the Eco Ambassadors. And I'll ask my colleague Heinz to maybe go over the course and take some questions.
Sure. Thank you, Radhika. Hello, everyone. It's great to be in this space with you today. So before we go into the discussions, we first wanted to show you it's a very short clip, less than 2 minutes, our trailer of the video. So I will share. Please let me know if you can see it. Here we go.
The unexpected events of 2020 have given us an opportunity to dig deep into the critical issues of our time and see global education on sustainable development as a key to revive, reform, and reshape the world. We connected with researchers, practitioners, activists, advocates, teachers, professors, parents, and students to sketch a roadmap of where we are and where we need to go. Our flagship program, Eco Ambassadors, has been published in top-tier education journals. Our conversations this past year have helped identify roadblocks to achieving global sustainability education, frame education for sustainable development, curricular design and approach, engage political and education leaders and global thought leaders, learn from community advocates, and hear insights from learners in classrooms and homes. We have carefully crafted some key lessons from these conversations, conferences, workshops, and talks into an online course that can help to frame and guide education stakeholders in how to approach a holistic education for sustainable development design, to integrate climate change education, environmental education. This course will help outline the process that could be helpful for the integration of sustainability into education and make SDG 4.7 a reality. We hope you will join our course to learn along with us.
That is our course, SDG 4.7 across curriculum and education spaces. And so our main purpose for creating this course was really to have a tool or a guide that can be used, especially for K through 12 teachers who are interested in operationalizing SDG 4.7 through curriculum design, lesson planning, community connections, to really incorporate the essence of SDG 4.7 and education for sustainable development into the classrooms and also to the school communities beyond the classroom. So you can see our course, and we wanted to share with you the actual website that you can use as well. You see. Or I can share the screen for the website.
Slide right. That's the website at the top there. Are you all seeing it?
Yes, we can see the website link.
Sorry, Sarah, if I can share screen, I can go through the actual website. We see the slide, but not the website. So as you can see, this is the website. Sorry for our little tech glitches. So we really wanted to shape this course out of what was really happening on the ground and what is happening in the classrooms. So the website content was curated from the insight and expertise from teachers, from youth activists, community educators, think tanks, researchers, school board members who are really passionate about SDG 4.7 and implementing it into their classrooms and into the communities. So you can see the descriptions here, but we also wanted to share with you very briefly the different modules that are part of the course. So we broke it down, all those conversations, into 5 different headings that you could see here, starting from, okay, why is this important and why are we starting this course? And I think I saw a question about who this course is for. It's really open for everyone who is interested in knowing more about SDG 4.7 and education for sustainable development and climate education. But we, for this round, we wanted to focus it a little bit for the K-12 teachers. And then our second module here, curriculum alignment and developing ESD integrated lesson plans. And this is what we're going to go into in further detail today with Tara during our workshop. So presenting a little bit of the framework on the lesson planning process. And then our module 3 and 4, the module 3 is on building learner agency, application across subjects. And then module 4 is connecting content to community. So those 2 modules are sharing more specific and concrete examples of what teachers have done, what community organizations have done, what school communities have linked to their surroundings to make this very feasible, and how they're implementing it on the ground. And then our last module is module 5, measuring progress to 4.7. This is a very emerging theme within education for sustainable development, but this module will be helpful for those of you who are thinking about, okay, we're going to be implementing all of this, doing all these activities, but how do we gauge the process and the progress that the learners are making, our communities are making? So it has some thoughts for consideration on doing that. So that is a very quick overview, but I'll stop there so that we can also delve deeper into the actual lesson planning content of today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Heinz. That was fabulous to know how we can actually go about learning more on education for sustainable development through the Udemy course. Now we have Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining today.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks. I know it's a busy time, and we started with a prayer on COVID, and I know that a lot of our countries, a lot of our places, especially India, and students are coming from here, are affected by that. So we really appreciate all of us coming together, focusing on sustainable development goals, especially 4.7, which will bring communities and education together, which will bring a lot of global citizenship together. So just on that note, I wanted to start by introducing Bluebell schools in India, which have really taken this initiative forward, and wanted to introduce K-Han Sanyal. He has been our on-the-ground person in India, taking a lead with the school partnership there and focusing on a lot on education for sustainable development. K-Han, over to you to demonstrate our work in through Bluebell School.
Thank you so much, Radhika. In fact, if you want to share the screen, that's fine. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to connect with such a vibrant group of educators who share in our vision of catalyzing local action for global change. Back in 2015, I had the opportunity to work with a small group of researchers under the guidance and leadership of Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Our work was centered on thinking about how ICT could enable the world to meet the SDG goals. Through my research, we studied numerous case studies across different continents and found that sustainable action was led by local leadership at the grassroots level. We have been fortunate with such leaders in India.
Oh, could everybody mute?
Yes,
could everybody mute, please, so that we can listen to K-Han? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have been fortunate to work with such leaders in India at Bluebell School International, where students are at the forefront of change. I'm excited to share some of this work. Tara Hain, if it's possible, if you could share the video. Thank you.
Social issues, the environmental consciousness that began a few years ago with the anti-cracker, anti-polybag campaign. Our Green Brigade Club continues to include more activities in its fold. Our love for the environment has resulted in the school remaining a polybag-free zone for the past many years, and activities like tree plantation drives, carpooling, switch-off engine drives, vermiculture, biocomposting to convert kitchen waste from the school canteen to compost, water harvesting, herbal garden. Let us take you on a brief tour of our greens. Installation of solar panels in our school premises supports use of renewable sources of energy and reduces the dependence on electricity generated from non-renewable resources. Ban on styrofoam plate, leading to greater sensitivity to students and to the environment. The school has also installed 3 types of dustbins: biodegradable, non-biodegradable, and paper at various places in the school premises to segregate waste. Regular workshops are conducted by our school council to make them aware about different types of waste generated and their segregation. Coming now to paper recycling. The waste generated in our school is recycled in the paper recycling unit installed in the school premises. We use this paper in-house for making of report cards, writing pads, letterheads, envelopes, certificates, paper bags, chart papers, photo frames, slips, etc. This is our contribution to reduce the pressure on the world's forests, because this recycled paper is made from paper, not from trees. It is time that we realize the urgency to make necessary lifestyle changes and to raise awareness, taking adequate measures towards slowing down environmental pollution. There could be hundreds of examples of humans-induced environmental pollution, but finding a solution to them also lies on humans.
So this is a link that we will share later if you want to dive deeper into how the school is managing this particular approach. We'll forward the link to you via email. In the next slide, if you could move to the next slide, we will hear—
In continuation of keeping—
Thank you so much. In this slide, we will hear what Mrs. Suman Kumar, the director of Bluebell School International, has to say about how do we think about the integration and curricular integration of the SDGs.
Hello, everyone. Well, those were the efforts of the Environment, our Green Brigade Club, which has over the years expanded its areas from merely tree plantation drives to responding to the emerging needs and challenges of the environmental issues confronting us all today. It has always been exciting to work with children, listen to their ideas, and get infected with their enthusiasm to design their own activities. So from our sporadic celebrations of the Earth Day, the Environment Day, Save the Water Day, and token range of activities, we realized we were just mouthing platitudes, and terms like climate change, greenhouse emissions, water harvesting, renewable and non-renewable energy had become politically correct, good academic classroom and TV discussions, without any substantial and visible attitudinal change. And year after year, we seem to be celebrating this overt tokenism. So on deeper reflection, we realize the need to conscientize the examination-driven parents, students, and teachers to step out of the confines of syllabus textbook mindset, to being aware of the national and international issues. Hence, films, experts from the parent community, government, and the academia, theater groups, all were invited to interact with the students to conduct workshops on leaf composting, vermiculture, waste segregation, and training the support staff of the entire school. Project presentations with research findings and data revealed the callous waste of paper in school. This led to installing a paper recycling plant in the premises, and the children from the primary school were brought in class-wise to study the process and be sensitized. However, despite the manifold activities of the club and its expansion, we found the program still limited in its scope. Of course, videos of Greta Thunberg went viral and were inspiring, but remained peripheral. Years ago, I remember reading Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, which began with the impactful line, quote, "The earth has fever and the temperature is rising." And today we all know that the earth is actually in ICU, if I may say so. And yet the crisis of the survival of the planet remains the critical issue, yet to be deeply understood. Schools and environment clubs across the world are doing amazing things, but we remain in isolation as independent entities. So questions that came up were, what are the real deterrents to save this beautiful planet? Is it a leadership crisis, the lack of political and moral will, the unabated consumption and greed? Or is it apathy and complacency consumed by individualism? Or just simple inertia? As an educator, I do believe that for sustainable transformation to happen, school and children must play a lead role. It must be our collective conviction first. The youth has always exceeded our expectations, and unless we as educators look at restructuring our curriculum beyond grades, textbooks, and syllabi, terms like deforestation, inequality, water crisis, gender equality, peace education, climate change will become routine cliches. So first, we realized we needed to develop a vision to view it as a whole school approach, with systemic planning of a structured but inclusive timetable, which includes the SDG goals, with learning measurable outcomes beginning right from the primary school. It's a simple fact. Now it's time for action. Second, working in tandem with the 21st century skills is recognizing the need for interdependence and oneness, greater collaboration of schools and cultures across the globe, a better understanding of the reciprocal relationships that bind human society towards each other for the conservation and protection of our immediate environment. Third, a single-minded focus for all adults and citizens, but especially for us in school systems as heads and leaders. The environmental programs must manifest a change in their consciousness and thinking and lifestyles to facilitate children to be empowered to lead, take ownership, and be the catalysts of change. Hence, if civilization needs healing, there is no doubt that the whole world needs a reconstruction and social transformation, and a new leadership committed to what we would term in the Indian philosophy as dharma, the unflinching commitment to leave a better world for posterity. The earth is but one country, and humankind its citizens. So before I hand over to Mrs. Poonam Sharma to share our efforts of integrating the SDG goals in our curriculum, I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Radhika, Director of Education, Center for Sustainable Development and Earth Institute, Columbia University, to have this platform for raising these very critical issues. Thank you, Mr. Jeff, for opening the whole approach to the integration of the SDG goals in the school curriculum. I'm sure with all the challenges, this is going to shake up the stereotypical mindsets. And given that children are impressionable, energetic, and proactive, you will certainly facilitate in creating this new generation of movers and shakers. Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Oops, sorry, my apologies. Yeah, you can move on to the next slide. Here we will hear from our young leaders and their teachers. There are a few projects, and in fact, the students, I believe, are on this call and would love to pose some questions towards the end. Please play the video. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We have been working with students right from pre-primary to senior classes to sensitize them with concerns of environment conservation, equality, basic human rights, and air and water pollution through various interdisciplinary projects like Save the Tiger, Water, Our Cultural Heritage, etc. for many years now. However, in the current academic year, we have redesigned the science curriculum of grade 6 to align the learning outcomes with the SDG goals of zero hunger and sustainable use of natural resources so as to achieve zero wastage. The topic food, originally spread over 4 chapters, is now being taken up as a single unit where students research various related aspects such as sources, nutritional value, wastage of food, and management of garbage generated, completely aligned with the goal of zero hunger and human rights. They present their findings through varied media like art, poetry, role play, PowerPoint presentations, etc. Following is a glimpse into their work.
When we had the science class, we started off with the chapter of food. So it was very interesting and I enjoyed a lot.
What did you enjoy about it?
So when we had started the chapter of food, we didn't only learn about the components of food, the food pyramid, etc. But we also learned about food wastage, the most vulnerable groups, what is the government doing and what we can do as children, because I feel if we do something, it can actually impact a lot. The meals that our help ate had less of calcium and protein, but I feel that should not be done. The food habits and everything should be the same as well. Eventually, we all are human beings. And I started to bring changes in my own family, moving on to our extended relatives and neighbors. I felt very disturbed because it forced me to ask questions as well as the government is doing a lot. Why is this happening? Because everyone should get nutritious food. Everyone stays healthy, happy, and safe. So we cook what is required so that nothing is wasted, and we don't even waste a spoonful of rice. Now I feel happy that I have made a teeny change in our family. I feel more and more people would implement it. Like now our neighbors, I have shared it to 10 people. Now those 10 people would share it even further to another 10 people. So slowly and steadily it happens. And I feel that the United Nations, the UN, is trying to have zero hunger by 2030. So I feel that we can help in that and we can reach that goal soon.
In this artwork, I wanted to depict a little piece of the environment. As for me, the environment is this planet and beyond, where air, water, land, and creatures from big to small are all intensely interconnected. Yes, it is borderless. And of course, mysteries like blankets of completeness are never absent. Although human existence on this planet is very, very tiny as fireflies, the greed that we carry seems to have no limits, and now it's burning down our only home. Remember, there is no planet B. I like the wilderness the way it is, the wild way. Let it grow the way it wants. Let's love it. And looking at this painting, I found out that some words were buzzing in my mind. So let me share them with you. A glance to infinity. The world is a massive miracle, where we are tiny as fireflies, yet we know our surroundings. Our sea green marble, which glows in ether, its wispy white clouds, light sowing birds, sudden tsunamis and breeze. Its waters, with more life than land, with fishes and corals, worms and eels, depths and bubbles. Mighty big mountains, carpets of neon foliage, great many creatures, great many possibilities. The world is great. Let's embrace it. Let's love it. Let's save it.
So in fact, over to you, Radhika, but I just want to say one thing, that we have in fact started a cluster where we are hoping eventually to do art projects with a school in New Jersey. So we're looking at these global partnerships where we're connecting with other schools to get students to interact with one another and share their ideas and what they think about sustainability. So over to you, Radhika. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share our work. I really appreciate the forum.
Very, very inspiring, Kehan, and especially Suman ma'am's work has always been, something that we need to take forward. As she said, that let's just not do these frivolous things and bring this to the center. But to bring this to the center, what we've realized is that there is no information about sustainable development goal that is comprehensive. Students generally, in my sense, they go on the online and they search whatever they want to search. But so for me, I think getting that information and being aware first is the first step towards any civic action or green action, as he would say it. So I feel that Jeff's book, Age for Sustainable Development, I think is the textbook that we need to follow through our work globally. There are many students here from Italy, Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Ghana, Nigeria, so many places. I feel that if we get hold of this book, there is an online version, there's an online course, we can look at the course again and use this book as a source of reference so that we get our facts straight and take it forward. I think that should be our starting point to get aware ourselves and then see what action we can take. So with that, thank you, Jeff, for joining. I think there are a couple of students, high school students, who have gone over the book and they have some questions for you. It will be great if you can answer those questions. We have 3 students from Flint High School, Tessa, Miranda, and Rebecca. Here are their bios. And then we have also Alok from Melbourne who's joining, and they have had a special assignment. They've gone over the book and they have some specific questions for you. And then after we hear from the student voices and your reflections on their questions, maybe if we can get an overview or your vision of how we should all collectively go forward with our mission, that will be fantastic. So over
that's wonderful. And I also I see Arav on the screen. Congratulations. That was a wonderful discussion you had online. I don't know if Adona is also with us, but how wonderful to watch. So thanks to all of you. You're doing brilliant, fantastic things. So I want to hear from Tessa, Miranda, and Rebecca, and Alok if we could.
Hi, I'm Tessa. I'm from Plainedge High School. So I just thought the book was incredible and it was fantastic to learn about sustainable development. I feel like when I'm in high school, I'm so focused on studying for exams that I'm not like taking a step back and learning something for the sake of learning it. And this was a fantastic opportunity. So thank you, Mr. Bertolotti. Some of my questions was prices for clean energy versus fossil fuels aren't really the kind of products where prices can be flipped overnight. So how would something like corrective prices even be able to begin? And where do you suggest that this change to making clean energy options more accessible begins?
Great. Shall we hear all 3 questions or 4 questions and then I'll respond to them?
Sure.
Great. Tessa, thank you very much. Good luck on your exam studies too.
Miranda, you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Miranda Garvey and I'm from Plainedge High School, and I also read your book. And through reading this book, I was able to become closer with my research members, which Tessa is across the library from me and Rebecca's right over there. And our amazing teacher, Mr. Bertolotti, helped us connect to Radhika and give us her opinion on what she thought about the book. And I thought it was amazing and very digestible to read. It was really an eye-opener for me and a way to step away from my normal studies in school and normal life. And one of my questions that I found very interesting part of the book was, do you think that governments are mishandling the funds to generate momentum on building these SDGs and supporting sustainable development?
Great. Thank you, Miranda.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Ganzkaufer, also from Plainedge High School. And just to basically reiterate what the other two said, we all read it, we all like really enjoyed it. And as you might have seen from like our bios and what we were looking at, this is kind of pretty distant from all of that. So it was kind of nice to take a look away from what our focuses are in and look at something different. We all found it a really interesting a look at something else, and also away from just studies in school of something we need to like take a test on. So one of my questions was that we saw in a few chapters it talked about like things like climate change being intergenerational issues. So with people where older generations either don't care or don't take responsibility for the actions that have happened during their generations because they won't be alive to see the consequences of those actions, excuse me. So my question was, how do you suggest that we reach out to these generations still who can still possibly make a difference, and also reach out to the younger generations so that we can keep including this kind of education into our education systems to make for a more sustainable future?
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. Fantastic question.
Hello, I'm Alok Bhatt. I'm in Melbourne High School. I found your book to be very interesting. It was definitely an eye-opener, Dr. Sachs, and I would like to thank Dr. Iyengar for introducing the book to me. And one thing I found exceptionally interesting was you in your book encouraged the developed countries to donate like a certain % of their GNP to developing countries. So my question is, how can we convince these countries to do so? And especially during these COVID times where countries are becoming more isolationist. For instance, like India donated millions of vaccines to poor countries, and now it is being criticized for doing so as it's facing a vaccine shortage during its second wave. The Europeans have also tightened export controls given their vaccine, their sluggish rollout. And the United States, after looking at these countries, understandably wants to prioritize its own people on the pandemic and the post-COVID economic front. And Chinese are in a position to help out other nations, but their assistance often comes with strings attached, as we've seen during the Belt and Road, with infrastructure projects in Sri Lanka and so on. So in the post-COVID world, as countries struggle to get back on their feet, how can we convince the Western democracies that donating is in their interest? And my second question is, you mentioned in your book how China was able to alleviate 900 million people from poverty within a 40-year period. The country, though, is an authoritarian one-party state. How can the success be emulated in the democratic countries in South and Southeast Asia?
Great. Wonderful questions. Thank you to Tessa, Miranda, Rebecca, and Alok for fantastic questions. I think we should note, and you should be very proud, the 40 world leaders had a Zoom summit, as you may have noticed, on Thursday. But I think your summit is better, the one we're having right now. I think your questions are really intelligent and important. And, you know, we shouldn't just leave it to the 40 heads of state, although I'm really happy that they met. And I'm really happy that they use Zoom. Because they should be talking to each other all the time. They don't have to wait for summits. They should say, hey, why don't we get together once a week to have a chat with each other so that we don't hate each other, don't misunderstand each other, don't blow up each other. It should be a pretty routine matter. But, you know, politics is really funny, and it's a big deal for world leaders to get on Zoom, even though it's pretty great for you guys to get on Zoom and learn from each other all over the world. And I think this is was a big advance during the week. And it showed some of the answers to your questions. Global cooperation is possible. Not only that, it's really necessary, because we can't solve any problems one country at a time. And this is a kind of illusion. Sometimes in the United States, we say, oh, we're such a great country, we can do anything we want. But the truth is, we can't solve climate change by ourselves. We can't stop the pandemic by ourselves, especially if there are the new variants that are mutating in different parts of the world. Every place is going to be vulnerable until we get this whole pandemic under control everywhere. And so we need a global cooperative approach. And what you are learning and doing is really important for that, because we need to make our global cooperation more effective so that we understand each other better. And I hope that you leaders can use Zooms to connect with students across the world pretty regularly. You could have a kind of international parliament of students to discuss various SDG issues and get schools involved all over the world in the kinds of projects that Bluebell's School International is doing, which is so incredibly inspiring and so smart, and get schools everywhere on that kind of agenda, and then have the students meet like a global parliament online. You don't even need funding for it. You just say, we're going to Zoom on Friday. You know, maybe instead of strike for Friday, it's Zoom on Friday. And the idea of the Zooming is, what practically are we going to do? What's our plan? What's the solution? And maybe students in India could talk about how India is going to reach net zero emissions. And students in the United States could talk about how the US can reach net zero emissions. And students in Italy can talk about how Italy could reach net zero emissions. Because you guys, once you start studying it, you'll find out, oh, this isn't so hard. As long as I'm not biased, and as long as I'm studying the real facts, and as long as I'm not, say, a CEO of a coal company, so I have a very special vested interest, but rather I'm looking at it from the point of view of all of the world's citizens, it turns out that there are some pretty good solutions. So Tessa asked about how are we going to get the clean energy, for example. This is something that every country should ask. And we saw in Bluebells that you put solar panels on the rooftop. This is a great thing, because now, first of all, the Bluebell students are probably experts in solar technology. You can calculate the capacity factor. You can calculate the rupees per kilowatt hour. You can calculate the efficiency gains. You can calculate the amount of CO2 emissions that have been avoided by having those solar panels on the rooftop. And that's very important to do, because then you can use that information to create a national scale plan. It happens in India because you have such large deserts like the Thar Desert in Rajasthan. You have all the solar power that you could need to power the whole country. And there is a solar mission, but it could even be a bigger solar mission. And Prime Minister Modi should know that you could go even faster to get out of coal, and that it would be cleaner air in Delhi and Mumbai and Pune and all the other cities of India, which have so much pollution sometimes, because I know when I visit how dirty the air is, but how clean the air would be if you're using solar cells, and also building them in India to create jobs and technology, because you guys are going to understand all of the technology of this. So you're going to be designers, engineers, systems engineers, putting all of this into place. In the US, Tessa, the costs of clean energy are coming down so fast and so much that we're really going to find good low-cost solutions. And for us in New Jersey and New York, offshore wind is going to play a really big role. Already there's some huge offshore wind development starting, and in President Biden's infrastructure bill, there's actually a lot of money for offshore wind. And then we're going to be connected to Canada, which is good, because most solutions require international cooperation. We need the power grid, not just within our own state or our own country, but also across borders, because Canada has very good hydroelectric power in northern Quebec. and they can ecologically produce it in a smart way. But then we need to have a grid, a high voltage direct current line that brings it from northern Quebec to New Jersey and New York. And that's also in the works now. So what's going to happen in the US is that we're going to have probably a new federal law that say, or new regulations that say that every state has to clean up, and states can't any longer allow for coal-fired power plants, for example. And President Biden on Thursday of this week at the summit announced that the US would cut its emissions by 50% by 2030. So this is a big, bold announcement. It's feasible. And the main way to do it is through massive investments in solar power, hydropower, wind power, and to really build up the scale of those very clean technologies. And fortunately, they're at quite low cost. They're basically at what we call grid parity, about the same cost as the dirty stuff, but without the dirty effects. So much better for society. And I think we'll move in that direction. And Miranda asked about government funding for the Sustainable Development Goals. We still in the United States have to use the language of the SDGs more than we do. You know, President Trump didn't care anything about this and didn't know anything about this. He didn't know too much about anything, unfortunately, because when he went to school, he didn't have this curriculum. So he was pretty ignorant, probably our most ignorant president we ever had. So he ignored all of this. But now with our new administration, a lot of smart people, but they're not talking about SDGs yet. So that's part of our goal. I think if you connect with your mayors, your congressmen, your senators from New Jersey and New York and say, hey, where are the SDGs? That's for us. Don't forget them. And write to President Biden, where are the SDGs? We like what you're doing on climate, on infrastructure, but mention the SDGs because that's the framework for the whole world to work together on this. I think we need to get this into discussion. And since you guys either are, well, you're going to be young voters very soon, they're going to want to read your letters and know what's on your mind and respond to you. So I think that you can have a very big effect on that. And Rebecca asked about intergenerational solidarity, and Alok asked about global solidarity. We need both of those. We need to be able to think across societies, and we need to be able to think across time. Now, you're the intergenerational leadership for your generation, and you're going to be leading on this really soon for two reasons. It's your baby. You've got it. You're going to have to solve this problem pretty quick. And second, you're going to know more about it than my generation, because my generation, we did not study these things in school. We didn't learn about them. We didn't know about them. And that is part of the mess. So if we can use the learning that you're gaining, I think you'll represent beautifully your generation's voice, and you'll remember that since our generation ignored your generation, you won't ignore the next generation. You'll actually understand the link across generations as being so important. And for global solidarity, you know, oh, this is so hard. I don't know why it's so hard, because people everywhere need the same things, want the same things, and face the same challenges, and could work together to solve the problems. And yet we face so many misunderstandings and so many conflicts. You know, I believe that the US and China should be cooperating with each other very much. China has a different political tradition. It's not only the modern state that is a top-down administrative state. That started in China's history in 221 BC. And so there's 2,000 years of Chinese statecraft that we should understand. It's not just some thing that we want to attack now. The US is a baby compared to China. China's 10 times older in its political institutions. And China avoided so many wars internally by having a unified and very well-trained bureaucracy in Confucian values. We should understand the Chinese system better, and we should aim to cooperate. And one very good point for international cooperation, all of our countries are part of the UN. All of our countries are supposed to be honoring the United Nations Charter for Peace, and all of our countries are supposed to be honoring the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was signed in 1948, which aims to ensure that every person on the planet has human dignity and economic, civil, and political rights. This is far from the truth right now, but every country is signed up to it. And so part of this is not to become cynical, but rather to say, hey, we're all signed up to the same goals. Let's achieve them. And the best way to do this is dialogue. The best way to do this is not accusations. The best way to do this is negotiation, dialogue, understanding, recognizing one's own shortcomings and saying, we're going to do better, you do better too. Because if it's just finger pointing, it doesn't work, especially when one government that makes so many terrible mistakes, like my government, the US, we do so many things wrong, starting wars and doing other things that we should not be doing. We can't just point fingers at other governments and say, hey, what about you? Unless we say, hey, what about us? Because it's both sides that need to be smart on this. When it comes to COVID, and you mentioned the vaccine nationalism, we call it, that each country is scrambling for short supplies. This is really self-defeating if we continue in this way, because of this problem that the virus doesn't care about the national borders, and it keeps evolving. And unless we get this disease controlled everywhere, we're all in trouble. And we are all in trouble right now. So what I'm trying to do in the UN system is help to design a global plan so that everybody on the planet, all adults at least, can get immunized no later than the end of 2022, because we have about 6 billion people that need to be immunized. It's a record mobilization of new vaccines and of all of the big effort to produce them, distribute them, and then get them into people's arms. So it isn't feasible to do in a month or in 6 months, but it won't work if we're just scrambling selfishly, saying we're going to keep what we produce, and so on. And this is our real challenge. So next week, I'm having a call with UN leaders around the idea of a global cooperative plan. And we also are discussing how to mobilize money so that the poorest countries have the financial needs that they want. And I'll just use that as an example. In general, in sustainable development, when you see something wrong, like the pandemic or climate change, it's really important to debate a plan and to design a plan, because these problems don't take care of themselves. And it's not a matter of only wringing our hands or saying how terrible the politicians are or why can't some other country do better. We need cooperation, we need rationality, we need science, we need justice. In other words, that everybody can be part of the solution. That's what I like about the UN. In principle, that's the idea of the United Nations, that no one is left behind, that every country is represented, and that everybody plays by the rules. Now, it's not like that in the world. You know, you have powerful countries and weak countries, you have rich people and poor people, but at least the aspiration of the UN is that no one is left behind. And we should always take the aspiration to try to make it real, rather than ever giving in to cynicism and saying, oh, that's just words. That doesn't help. That just confirms the bad outcome. What we need is the kind of idealism that you guys have, which say, hey, okay, even if the older people didn't solve it, we're going to solve it. And so having a plan is really important. Use Zoom a lot, by the way. This is my advice to you. This is incredible. We didn't have Zoom. When I was your age, I had pen pals, not even by email, because we never heard of email. It didn't exist. So I used to write letters once a week to one person in East Germany. But now you could have a student parliament for the whole world. And that would really be a fantastic change. So congratulations to all of you. You're doing such a fantastic job. You really are the leaders of sustainable development. Study hard. The more you know, the better the solutions are going to come, and work together. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was very inspiring. And we are going to take up this idea of student parliament, global student parliament, so that we can discuss. And as you're saying, countries need to dialogue more. We will get on a dialogue mode as soon as possible. Also, the students who asked, who Tessa and Miranda and Rebecca and Alok, will have a question posted on TikTok or on social media. We are thinking of what we want to do from your book, and let's get solutions from all over. They will post their solutions from their own neighborhood, and we'll get solutions on that question from your book across the globe. So that's our plan. We'll let you know how it goes.
And let me just say that with that, the wonderful presentation of Bluebells, that's great leadership, really great. But not only great leadership, but also a great presentation. So I need that clip so I can show it to the UN leaders to show what you guys are doing. And then when other schools see it, they're going to say, hey, wow, that is cool. That is really great. We're going to do the same, but they won't do exactly the same because they won't have the same problems exactly. They'll have different problems, but you'll give them ideas about what to do. And I see Adona, that was incredible, your presentation, Adona. And I see your hand is raised, so maybe you can say something.
Yes. Adona and Arav have questions for you. So
oh, good.
Yes, good evening, everybody. So I just had a question, and it's that why doesn't climate action get as much attention as it deserves?
Well, yeah, Adona, it's a great question. I think this week it actually got a lot of attention because if you look at all the presidents that came together for their Zoom, and then you look at what you guys are doing, I'm feeling pretty good about this week. Because this week you had Prime Minister Modi, and you had President Biden, and you had President Putin, and you had President Xi Jinping, and you had Brazil's President Bolsonaro, and you had Indonesia's President Jokowi, and you had the President of the European Commission, Madam van der Leyen. So many world leaders came together. That was good. They spent the whole day talking about this. And so I felt much, much better at the end of that day, which was Thursday, than I had beforehand, because finally they were talking about it, Adona. So that was good news. And I think that if we can keep up the discussion and, not only talking about it, but also talking about solutions to it, which I think is really important. That's why we call our initiative the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, because we want to solve the problems, not only talk about the problems. But you did such a beautiful, really beautiful presentation. So inspiring. I'm going to show my granddaughters also if I can. So they're gonna watch you in that fantastic presentation. Thanks so much.
Mara?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to ask, what gave you the inspiration to write this wonderful book?
Oh, Rob, thank you very much. The big joy of studying things is that when you learn things, and I've had the benefit to learn from real experts in each of those areas. You want to share the knowledge, just like you are sharing the knowledge. So writing a book is really a lot of fun, and I recommend it. You know, once I was in a very, very interesting job when I wrote that book. I was head of a big project at my university, at Columbia University in New York City, called the Earth Institute, which continues till today. But then I was director of the Earth Institute, and the idea was bring together experts from all of the different fields. So food production and energy systems and climate and poverty and education, all these different fields. Well, that's like being, you know, it's so much fun to learn from someone who has studied the issue so much, and then they tell you, oh, that's how it works, and those are the answers to it. And so for me, the joy was to be able to convey all of that knowledge that I learned from all my colleagues, and to put it together in a way that I hope will support the Sustainable Development Goals, because the SDGs are really an interesting thing. All of the governments agree to them. They cover all the different areas: poverty, hunger, healthcare, education, gender equality, water, renewable energy, decent jobs, internet, inequality, sustainable cities, circular economy, clean energy, protected marine environment, protected land environment, rule of law, global partnership, all 17 objectives. Wow, how cool is that, that you get them all together? And so finding all the ways, which is what today's session is about too, of helping to achieve those goals. That was my inspiration for writing that book. Thanks for asking.
Thank you, Jeff. I know there'll be a lot of questions, but I'm sure we don't want to take up all of your Saturday. You must be busy with other assignments and other work, especially talking to world leaders during this critical time. But maybe one last few words of inspiration to go forward and make a plan so that we can go ahead with the plan and come back to you with some progress.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you. That's fantastic. So that leaves us with like a bigger vision. Jeff has given
sorry.
us.
Yeah. Could I ask one more thing? We heard a few words about karma and about the role that karma can play in our role of improving the world. And I want to say, first, I would like us to learn more because each tradition and civilization and culture should help to understand this challenge. And so I would like all of the different cultures and all of the different major religions also to be contributing to our common humanity. In Western Europe and the United States, where we don't know as much, well, there are, of course, many people who do know about karma, but many people who don't. We need to learn more. And I'm very happy that Pope Francis, of Rome, the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, has written about sustainable development in two very powerful writings in recent years that a lot of people all over the world are reading. And I know also that the head of the Greek Orthodox Church, His All Holiness Patriarch Bartholomew, has been writing about this. So I just wanted to add that I think the great traditions of all of the civilizations of the world have so much to contribute to each other. And we should understand how the human values as expressed in different civilizations are all part of the rich common humanity that we share. Part of our SDG challenge is those values. And SDG 4.7 that Radhika and I and Heinz and all of our colleagues at the Sustainable Development Solutions Network work on, call on us to be good global citizens, sharing the best values of all our civilizations together. So that's also what makes it so much fun that we can have this kind of exchange, which we couldn't have had 10 years ago or 20 or 30 years ago. This is the fun part now, to get together and learn from each other. So I just wanted to add that idea as well.
Thank you, Jeff. That's really pertinent because it also speaks to the global citizenship idea that we started with for this conversation, that ESD, Education for Sustainable Development, and thinking about the environment or the planet has to go along with taking care of its people and taking care of one another. And so the karma idea from Suman ma'am, I think, is really is something that we need to have built in our value system through the education curriculum that we have. We have a huge task ahead. I think there's a lot of cultural shift that we need to bring in, not just build back better. I think Mike Heinz earlier on said that we need to build a new system and learn from all our mistakes that we've done and make a much more cohesive, much more transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary approach going forward. And how do we do that? I think Tara Stafford, one of my colleagues, she will go over how we need to co-create materials together. Let us not just leave it to the school system to create lesson plans. Let us ourselves create lesson plans and talk to our teachers, talk to our younger siblings, talk to our younger peers, and work on this together. So I'll ask Tara to lead the effort on co-creating materials that are focused on SDGs as well as focused on, especially on SDG 4.7.
Great. Radhika, Tara, Heinz, all colleagues, thank you so much. And to all friends all over the world, Kayan, great to see you again. Congratulations to Bluebell Schools and all of your wonderful, wonderful work from all of the students that I got to meet today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jen. Tara, maybe you can take over. Yes.
Yes, I'm just bringing my screen up here. Can folks see my screen? All right. Well, thank you all so much. It's been such an inspiring and motivating session already. And I think you all are on the right track with all the amazing ideas that you're bringing to the table and the thoughtful questions that you're thinking about already. So this last part of our session today, we still are going to hear a couple more examples. But we want to think, how can we operationalize all these great ideas and take some of the examples that some of you are already working on in your schools, in your communities, to share with more learners around the world so that we have more resources for how we can operationalize SDG 4.7. So I'm going to show a couple slides and then I'll actually show you some of the website and resources that we've been putting together so far. So part of today's session is really about this new initiative, Mission 4.7, that we've recently become a part of, which is focused on making sure that we mobilize all sectors to increase access to education for sustainable development. So these ideas of global citizenship, gender equality, human rights, how do we make sure that these ideas are integrated into what we're learning in school? Some of the students from Plain Edge, I was clearly you're thinking about these issues, but I was really struck by the point that a couple of you made about, oh, it was so nice to read this book because it's different from our usual studies. But we want this to be part of our usual studies. How can we learn about education for sustainable development in ways that are already aligned to the existing curriculum so that it becomes something hopefully a little more smooth for teachers to start to bring into what they're already doing, to have some of that reciprocal relationship between learners and students for these kind of topics, and students, as we're learning, you are the experts on these issues. So our goal with this project we're working on that I'm going to talk about is we are building a platform where we want to collect, curate, and share youth and educator developed lessons and resources for fostering these attitudes and skills that we're talking about with SDG 4.7, right? So sustainable development, sustainable lifestyles, gender equality, global citizenship, human rights. These are the ideas that we want to collect lessons around from you all. And so the kind of thing we're looking for is these kind of case study based lessons, right? As Professor Sachs, and as many of you have been saying, is we don't just want to teach about problems of sustainable development, but we want to teach about solutions. We want to highlight things that are already being done and actually do some of those actions and solutions through these kind of learning experiences that we're designing. So we're looking for these kind of case study based lessons that can showcase the intersectionality of the SDGs as well, right? So an issue when we're talking about climate action can also be something that touches on gender equality, right? Some of these solutions are tackling multiple problems at once. So we're looking for lesson plans to kind of highlight some of those intersections and encourage learners to practice these skills of SDG 4.7. And I have a couple images here on the screen that is from a lesson that was already submitted during this early phase of us starting to roll this out from a youth-led NGO in Indonesia called the Taiju Hana Foundation, and they do a lot of work on food security and changing peatland areas into sustainable agriculture to have more food accessibility for people in need. So they have some great resources on their website, and they put together a little lesson plan that uses some of those resources and talks about how people can manage peatland for betterment of food security. So that's just one example of a lesson that has been submitted to us by a youth-led organization, highlighting their solution-oriented work to the SDGs and how it can be integrated in classrooms. And the approach that, so we've got some tools and resources to help folks who want to submit lesson plans think through your ideas and kind of figure out how you might structure a lesson. And the framework that we're suggesting folks use is this understanding by design framework that really grounds lessons in what are the big ideas, what are the enduring understandings that we want learners to come away with. Okay, so not just, you know, the curriculum standard about whatever math skill or whatever science skill, but why, you know, why do we need to learn these things? Why is this important for our world, for our people? So the understanding by design framework is what kind of guides the questions in the lesson planning template that we're asking people to submit their ideas through. So this website that I think we saw a clip of it earlier when Heinz was showing our Udemy course, this website here, let me see if I can just switch over to that website. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and then reshare. Oh, wait. You can still see my screen, right? Okay, so this is the content contributors hub that we have so far. So as you can see, we've got links to the book from Professor Sachs. The first few chapters are available on Google Books. He's also got an accompanying online course where you can really dig into the issues talked about in the book. Then of course we have our Udemy course, which is for anyone, but especially relevant for educators who are interested in figuring out how to integrate these concepts into their teaching practice. And then we have a lesson planning toolkit and a shorter video that's, I think, great for youth who just kind of want to get some ideas, help brainstorm about how you can take any actions you're already doing in your community or any ideas you have and turn them into lesson plans that ideally align to different standards so teachers can easily plug them into what they're doing. And then of course, we're asking people to submit their lesson plan ideas through our portal using Google Forms. So just to kind of give you a couple ideas, this is from the lesson planning toolkit that's linked there on that page. Let's think of, so let's say you have a case study example. I live in Jersey City, New Jersey. So that video as well talks about an example of a municipal backyard composting pilot program that's going on in the city right now that a lot of homes are getting involved with. And so that ties into SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities. It ties into SDG 12 on sustainable consumption, and it's a solution to climate change. So it ties into SDG 13 on climate action. And how can you take this case study, this thing that's actually happening, this solution, and turn it into lessons across different subject areas? So some ideas here are, in the sciences, you can link this to teach about interdependent relationships in ecosystems, the decomposition process. If you want to teach a math lesson, you can build early grade sorting skills by figuring out, what kind of waste items should be put in the trash, put in the recycling, composted. You could do a language lesson, learning the different vocabulary, or doing a persuasive writing exercise to encourage your municipality to adopt such a pilot program. social studies, again, you could link to different civic standards about how something like this gets enacted at a local policy level. Art, right? You could draw a picture of the decomposition process. So how any creativity you can bring to it, we can take these solution ideas and develop lots of different lessons around them. And that's what we hope that these resources we're providing can help you kind of think through some of those ideas you might have and how you can do that. And then, so this is the web form that we have where we're asking folks to submit their lesson plan. So you can see we ask folks to select the SDGs that are relevant to your lesson idea, to describe kind of the solution, the overall case, you know, what your whole lesson is grounded in, what's the idea, what subject or course area does, you know, what subject does your lesson align to, the grade level, and you can see here we include lifelong learners, right? We want not just things that can be implemented in formal schools, but things that could be taught at a community level as well. And then what materials are needed for class. So this is someplace where we're hoping anyone who submits lessons can include links. You know, you could include a Google Slides link if you have a presentation that goes with it, or if there's a YouTube read aloud story or something like that, you can put those resources here. There's not a place to actually upload content, but you can link to that content in here. And then this is where we get through use the understanding by design framework to kind of guide you through thinking about the big ideas of your lesson first, and then getting to the actual, okay, what are the different activities and experiences that you will guide educators to use in their lessons. So that's the main idea here. And let's just go back here. So we can make a little time to discuss your ideas and ask questions, but I think it will help kind of illuminate what we're talking about here, to hear from some examples of different lessons that are being enacted through the Global Schools program. So why don't we go to Amanda next, and Amanda will introduce some lesson ideas to help us think through more examples, and then we can have a discussion for the remaining time to hear any questions or ideas you all have, and talk through some of those ideas. So Amanda, can we hear from you?
Yes, thank you so much, Tara. And thank you to everyone that has spoken today. It's just been amazing to hear the things that you are doing in your classrooms and everything that the students are doing as well. So just as a brief overview, I know we have a lot of advocates on this call, but I work with the Global Schools program, which is another initiative of the SDSN, and where we really create a network and a global community of practice of teachers doing this kind of work in classrooms in 50 countries around the world. So if you could go to the next slide, Tara. So I just want to briefly bring out a few examples that we've seen advocates have done internationally, just to give you ideas of case studies that can be applicable across a variety of contexts. So the first one I have here, I have the SDGs listed, but as we've been talking about, it's very intersectional, and all of these ideas can go across multiple SDGs and multiple subject areas. So the first one I have here is SDG 9, Industry, Innovation, and Infrastructure. So we had an amazing advocate, Sheriff Bello, I think he might be on this call, but what he took into the classroom was looking at the localization of industry and environmental pollution in his community and looking at a case study around this. He talked to his students about how these products that are happening from the pollution in the community can even be damaging to plants and animals, and had the students actually work together in pairs to carry out research on the danger of improper management of waste. And his students did incredible work, and they were able to come up with solutions for waste management for their community and for the world at large. So I thought this was a really great way to talk about how the local industry can affect the entire SDG agenda in that community context, but it can be relevant for any context as well. So then moving here to clean water and sanitation, goal 6, one idea could be discussing community water resources and who uses them. In the US, we have the Flint, Michigan water crisis, which could be a case study to talk about in the US context. There's a lot of things you can do on water resources, especially when talking about activism and women's leadership. There's a lot of cases of women having a huge leadership role in being peacemakers and solving water tensions in the Yemeni conflict, which is another interesting case.
One of our amazing advocates, Sodiq Odutola, did a great activity on clean water and sanitation, but also relating to health and climate action. So his students actually took turns to analyze the effects of climate change could have on water resources in his community. And they were given a task to research, human activities that contribute to the climate crisis. So his students were actually able to investigate the existence of the activities that contributed to climate change. And I just wanted to highlight this as a great example of taking that community case, looking at community water resources, and then giving students an action. I'll just go quickly through the next two because I know we want to give some time to discuss. So 16, a really great idea could be to profiling a community activist, or community activist that's working for peace, but also that's working for justice. A lot of our advocates in the DRC have done work on storytelling and profiling heroes in their contexts that are culturally relevant and showing the students how they can be heroes in this mission for peace and justice. And lastly, on reduced inequalities, another case example could be using your own school community as a case itself. So profiling your school and assessing inequality in knowledge about the SDGs, profiling your school and seeing how many students walk to the campus, how many students might take a bus, and looking at all these inequalities to really make a case out of that school community and take action. So next slide. And I'll just leave you here with these final two pictures. So a lot of these case study lessons have evolved into bigger action projects that we've seen our Global Schools Network doing, as well as our Global Schools community advocates. So one of our schools in Bangladesh used some of their lessons on SDG 6, clean water, to then create a school-wide water filtration system. And this is one of those examples of a whole of school approach and really getting everyone involved, and the principal and school leadership in doing this. And they got engineering students involved to design this water filtration system. They got so many different kinds of artistic students involved as well. We've also seen advocates planting trees in community gardens across many country contexts. The picture on the right you'll see is from an advocate in Spain. So what they did is they had students design their own sustainable cities. So we've seen this actually in two ways, either just on poster paper like this, or also as architectural models as well. And we also have seen advocates doing a lot of work with upcycling materials in India and the Philippines. So just to say, when you're thinking about these case study lessons, there's really the 3 steps that Tara was talking about. Looking at your curriculum goals and learning objectives and seeing what you're supposed to be accomplishing with your students. Then number 2, thinking of a proper and applicable case, as she was discussing. And 3, then taking it into these community actions that you can do in the whole of school, and really taking those things forward to create that long-term change that we want to see, and how Professor Sachs was talking about that in his speech as well. So I just wanted to quickly share those examples, and congratulations to those advocates that are on this call that have done such incredible work as well.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Those examples are so excellent. And I love how you brought up the idea of using what the schools are doing as case studies. So like Bluebells, all this amazing work with the paper recycling and everything, that could be a lesson about how did that happen at the school? What was the decision-making process? Who advocated for these things to make this, encourage the school to take up some of these solutions themselves and not just teach about them happening in other places. And that's where we, link these lessons to the civic component. And I think I'm reminded as well of what Eliza said early in our session today about kind of delving into some of those uncomfortable feelings, sometimes things that can be thought of as, political or things like that. People shy away from them in education spaces, but some of these solutions, there has to be a little bit of pushing. So I think some of the lesson plans that we think of, we should challenge ourselves to consider, doing things in an appropriate way, but pushing a little bit. How can we encourage some of these changes to happen sooner in the institutions that we're part of? So I think now it'd be great if we can open it up to some discussion about any lesson ideas that folks have, or things you're thinking about submitting, questions you have about the process. And just to share, you know, some of the next steps for us is, as we're kind of collecting more lessons, more resources, we're also going to be working on kind of improving how we'll showcase them on our website to make it more interactive, to enable folks to be able to search for lessons based on grade level or subject area or SDG. So those are some of the things we'll be working on our side. But in the meantime, I will just show you again how our website is. Sorry, one second. I'm just trying to change my tab here. Okay, so this is how the website is looking so far, where we have some of the lessons that have been shared so far. So you can kind of see what SDGs they align to, what subject, what grade level, and then you can click into them and actually download lesson plans. And the lesson plans also have different linked resources and things like that as well. So that's what we have so far. And any lessons we'll be receiving, this is where we'll be posting them on our Ed4SD page, ed4sd.org/learning hub. We'll put that in the chat as well, but just to let you know. So that's kind of where we're at. And yeah, let's open it up. I know we're over time already, but if folks have questions or ideas, we'd love to hear from you. You can either put them in the chat or just go ahead and raise your hand.
If I may add, this was wonderful. I really like the idea of the student parliament. It'd be wonderful if that could happen. And one thought on my end, I think this is a perfect piece of infrastructure, and maybe students could submit work. You know, a student could document what they've already done and then frame it using the SDGs. And from there, this might be a great repository where students take the initiative, do the research, create the prototype and the intervention, trial run it, and then share their progress with other students across the world.
I love that idea. And definitely we want these lessons coming from youth. We want them from educators as well, but we hope that youth who, you know, are involved, they're out there on the ground, they're doing actions in their community, but maybe not necessarily thinking about how can I translate this into a lesson plan to help even more people get involved. And to the question earlier about intergenerational collaboration, schools are the best place for that to happen, right? Because it's young people working with teachers, getting the parents involved, getting the community involved. So yes, I love that. And we hope that this can be a forum for that, where young people can put their ideas out there. We can support with some little tweaks here and there. And then we can also get feedback from folks who are implementing these ideas in their classrooms. I think Frida has a question. Frida, do you want to share?
Yeah, definitely. And like William mentioned before, it's such a great idea for students to get involved. And when listening to this, the first thing I thought of was, well, getting my members involved and getting, you know, other high school students involved in this. And just for a little context, I do run this initiative called the Green Cause, which is all about environmental education and high schoolers creating these lesson plans for elementary and middle schools. But something that we hadn't thought of is putting this like SDG kind of learning mindset into it. And it's something that I would absolutely love to give like a kind of an opportunity like that to some of my members. I was just talking to another colleague of mine about this, because this is such a great way to not only let our voices be heard through the lessons and ideas that we have, but also getting to know other ideas and other lessons that, you know, hearing from those case studies, hearing from these schools. I think it's absolutely wonderful to hear that all these people have already tried all these great things. And it's also great to know people from all around your community and all around the world. So I would definitely be interested in having some of my members put some lessons up.
That would be great. And just, I think you might have noticed there, when I click on one of these lessons, it shows who submits it. So that's another way that we can, you know, share out the different youth-led organizations that are being a part of this, so more people know about all the great work you all are doing on a grassroots level. We have a question from Oigoga. I'm sorry if please correct my pronunciation if that was wrong. We'd love to hear from you as well. Want to unmute?
Am I audible?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You have your hand raised.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, I really appreciate Dr. Sachs' inspiring talk at this webinar. And I kind of got some inspiration as regard actually implementing the ESD locally in our school, our various school environments. And I kind of thought that it will be good if we kind of, for efficiency and effectiveness, integrate a subject specifically dedicated to learning about sustainability, much like we do have subjects like business education, physical education in the curriculum. The curriculum could be reoriented such that sustainable education can feature as a subject on its own, while the lesson plans in the various subjects now can now embed the practicality about sustainable development that is across the various subjects. So I was wondering if this could be harnessed into the school systems, maybe formal, non-formal, that is having a subject dedicated for sustainable education. Then in the various subjects, the lesson plans can now be channeled towards solving problems as regard that subject. So I don't know if this idea could be debated upon, and if any advocate or any person on this webinar has comments to share, I think we could just quickly say one or two things about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would love to hear others' thoughts on that. Just to mention quickly, though, where I live here in New Jersey in the U.S., they actually are undergoing a process of integrating climate change standards across subject areas. So instead of having it as a standalone subject, which that does also exist in some schools, it's integrated across subjects. But yeah, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts. Some people think it's good to have it as a standalone. Others think it's good to integrate across. So it's not a subject, but it's just life, right? We want to live in a sustainable world. We want to thrive. How do we learn how to do that in all subjects? But then also we can dedicate specifically to that subject for people who really want to dig into that. So I think it's both and.
Check
There's thoughts.
it's why you get Tara, Stanford, Okantia. Let me snap a picture. Let me snap a picture and send to you. Oh, she's looking like an elderly woman, like a married somebody.
Sorry, what was that? I think we have another, is that, I didn't quite get.
Tara?
Yes, please.
Well, Oyegoga brought up something very important. My name is Milton Villarroel. I am an advocate for global schools in North Carolina. And what I can tell him is that the advocacy is a very multifaceted challenge for everybody. I am a true believer in SDGs and of course on partnerships. That's one of the things I have always worked upon. I'm here in this country thanks to a program that brings teachers to, in my case, for example, share our native language with the community. And I have already worked towards that. In my school, for example, I have shared my thoughts with my immediate community. I have already spoken to all the principals, etc. And I got them on board, which will help me get to all the teachers in the near future. With the partnerships I have, let's say, I'm also trying to expand that area of influence in the next months. And the state of North Carolina provides a very interesting service to new teachers, let's say. And through that system, I am also, lobbying so that they give me a chance to talk to the rest of the teachers, the new teachers that belong to the program. So you can see that, building partnerships is very important. They are very good multipliers, because normally advocacy in one place, when you're alone, let's say, you really feel very small. But, using your network of connections, friends, even, social media networks, really helps multiply your efforts. And it's a step-by-step. But I encourage everybody to continue doing that. See who can be a good connection and see how far that connection can get you. I enjoyed this morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hope that gives a few ideas around there.
Thank you so much, Milton. One other thought to Oyegoga's comment that I forgot to mention was, I love your idea, and I feel that it could also be a civic lesson idea, depending on where you live, to write persuasive letters or encourage the school Department of Education to do more to integrate climate change and education for sustainable development to the curriculum. So that could be a lesson plan in itself to advocate for that. So that's just an idea. I believe we have another question from Katerina.
Yes, hi everybody together. I'm calling from Germany, Frankfurt. So thanks a lot for this really great workshop, and especially the words from Mr. Dr. Sachs and all others. I think it was really great insights, and I think our students and children are really the next leaders, and maybe best leaders already, I have to say. So this is my learning from this workshop. I personally work since 10 years in sustainable development as well in the EU, and a little bit more with companies together and students. So I think also what could be interesting in this context a little bit to connect more, as others said already, with partnerships with companies, with universities, sometimes also, let's say, older people need a little bit more inspiration also from younger people. So that could be one aspect. And I think there is a big intercultural aspect of SDGs. In each region, in each country, there are different values and also different status quo and a different kind of approach of implementation, as well as in organizations. So that could be also an aspect for educational material. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Any other questions or thoughts before we start to close up today? I'm gonna go back to our slides. I think, Radhika, can I turn it back over to you to talk a bit about the summer project?
Thanks, Tara. So this summer, we have a very exciting opportunity talking about partnerships. I think Milton mentioned partnerships are great. And so I think we need to be globally connected with global movements that are going on, for example, but act local, because otherwise, get the ideas that are there globally, build partnerships, but act local. So in this area, we are partnering with ESRI and my colleague Mariam at SDGs today, which is also a part of SDSN, and we are focusing on this goal 14, life below water. And the idea here is, again, to take Jeff's book, there's a oceans and fisheries chapter in it. Take that chapter, get some information on what is going on, get abreast with all the challenges that are currently going on, and to do that we'll be launching this particular initiative. I'll just share the link on the chat. It is a story map making exercise, which will be posted on UNSGSN's website, which is SDG Today's website, as well as the students will get a certification of completion of the project, and it's a very cool project. So you'll learn about oceans and all the other SDGs that are related to oceans. You learn about microplastic. Many of us who are in this area are very passionate about plastic issues. So, and here is a global goal that connects our passion with the data that we can organize. So it will have, you learn about GIS mapping. I will get to learn a lot about GIS, real-time data collection, phone-based data collection. SDG today has actually released this data of oceans. So I think we can use that data as well to create really cool stories on what have you been doing in terms of understanding the scope and the problem, and then how are you acting on that in your area. You don't have to be near a ocean or water body, but the idea here is to understand the issue and how can you either get secondary data, which is on SDGs today, or you can collect this data and create a story map. So I've shared this link. Over the next couple of weeks, it's a 10-week program. We will have a lot of student initiatives. If you have any ideas, definitely send an email to us on how your work can be showcased. It is all student led. There'll be a lot of student presentations over the 10 weeks. We will have some scientists talk about plastic issues. We'll have some scientists talk about overfishing. There will be some other panel discussions. There'll be local actions. And so we will know, the bigger scope of things. We will also focus on Jeff's book as a primary textbook to learn about this particular issue. And then we go forward learning from Esri how to make these maps, story maps with GIS mapping. So I think it's a very interesting knowledge. You increase your knowledge as well as you increase your skill to do this GIS mapping, which is, I think, a really cool tool which you can use for other subjects as well if you learn during this course of the summer. And then we have SDGs Today website will be posting the best stories that come out of it, and you will also get a certificate of completion at the end. So it's like a really nice summer project that is connected to the SDGs. You are learning about the SDGs, and as well as you are also acting local. So here is an opportunity that brings all of us together again. Next couple of weeks, we will be organizing more panels and discussions on this topic. If you have any ideas, definitely send information to us or send ideas to us. Happy to connect on this particular challenge. It is a global challenge, so it will have a lot of students from all over coming up with their own story maps, and we would love if you would take this entire course, 10 weeks course. Esri is a perfect partner to work on using GIS mapping. So that's our next summer outline. We will be busy 10 weeks. We'll be focusing on this particular goal. This is the year of the oceans as per UN. So that's why we focused on this particular issue. And there's so many things that are connected to life below water. So I think this would be a perfect way of bringing all the different SDGs under one umbrella to build up our own knowledge base, as well as get the skill of doing GIS mapping. That can go across different subjects as well. Yes, so that's we will let you know. We will keep you informed on this particular summer project. Tara, if you go to the next slide, maybe everyone can see how they can contact us. These are our Twitter handles, Facebook, other things, but many people know us already in this group, so we will connect by email, and we can connect by another Zoom sessions and other things. But I think it's just been so wonderful to be connected again. Thank you for sparing your time. I know it's a weekend, we won't take a lot of your time, but it's an exciting opportunity for me to learn from you, and I hope that we continue this collaboration, and I hope that we learn from the SDGs and take it forward, not just globally, but also act locally to improve our people, improve our neighborhoods, and improve the planet. Thank you so much, and we'll definitely connect back soon. Have a great Sunday and have a great weekend.